Welcome to Etihad Focus, your number one spot for the latest match updates, transfer news, and inside training coverage. If you love football, you're in the right place. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any breaking updates. Let's get started. Manchester City plan. January. Mega offer for Mark Guuhei. Manchester City are said to be ready to offer Guuhei £250,000 per week to make the switch in January. When Liverpool saw their left-it-too-late move for Crystal Palace centre-half Mark Guuhei fall apart on deadline day last summer, the general belief was that the Reds would remain front-runners for his signature in summer of 2026 on a free transfer when his contract expired. While that certainly remains a possible outcome, the problem with waiting a year to make a signing is other clubs might decide they have reason to try to beat you to it. Other clubs like Manchester's very own sports washing front for a human rights abusing petrostate, also known as City. Now, outlets from TalkSport to the Liverpool Echo to the BBC are speculating that City, who currently face an injury crisis in defence that needs fixing if they're to have a chance of catching Arsenal, are prepared to offer Guuhei a mega contract to sign off on a transfer this month. Guuhei has widely been reported to be content to see out his contract and move in the summer, but as the story goes, City believe offering him a £250,000 per week wage that exceeds what would likely be on offer from the Reds come summer may convince him to abandon the Eagles. For Liverpool's part, there remains no real new news or chatter on the Guuhei front, with most of the speculation feeling rather warmed over, potentially based on no more than a now 6-month-old assumption that if they wanted Guuhei last summer, they must still want him. Given his homegrown status, clearly there would be value in signing the England international. It's entirely possible, though, that the player was largely seen as a target of opportunity, and that a year on it might well be that Liverpool will have a different player top of their lists. Gary Neville slams worst decision ever as Pep Guardiola backed over Man City VAR fume. Gary Neville has backed Pep Guardiola after the Man City boss aired his frustration over Antoine Semenyo's disallowed goal against Newcastle United. Gary Neville has backed Pep Guardiola's frustration over Antoine Semenyo's disallowed goal in the match against Newcastle United. The recent Man City recruit had already netted one and believed he doubled his score just minutes later. The Ghanaian international nudged Tijani Reinder's corner past Nick Pope, only for Stuart Atwell on VAR to suggest Chris Kavanagh review the footage. The referee subsequently disallowed the goal, ruling Erling Haaland to be offside and having interfered with Newcastle's attempt to clear the ball. Despite his team leading 2-0 into the second leg, thanks to Rayan Cherki's later goal, Guardiola was visibly irate at the final whistle. On the overlap, Stick to Football podcast Neville said, "I thought it was the worst decision I have ever seen. I think Pep was absolutely spot on. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Haaland was never getting near that goalkeeper." Ex-United midfielder Roy Keane pondered if Haaland could have been more strategic with his positioning, but criticised VAR for its lengthy decision-making process. Neville added, "The keeper was nowhere near Haaland. The defender would never have stopped that." It was one of those with VAR that winds everyone up because it's the tiniest little thing, former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher chimed in. Neville said, "Newcastle aren't quite getting results, but every time I watch them, I like them. I like watching Newcastle play. I think they play the right way." Post-match, Guardiola expressed his frustration and said, "I will say it now. I would like to know why VAR in 60 minutes in the Premier League game at Newcastle when we lost 2-1, it was 0-0 and it was an insane penalty on Shah for Phil Foden and not even a consideration. And at 20 minutes there is an unbelievable penalty from a shot from Jeremy Doku that hit Theo's hand and not even VAR. Today 4 people were not able to decide because the line was, I don't know, but the second goal that Newcastle scored in November, the line was perfect. I'm not suspicious of that in 10 years. I didn't say anything when we lost 2-1 here. I didn't say anything in the FA Cup final against Crystal Palace when it was a red card after 30 minutes for Dean Henderson. Did I say anything? No. It's okay. It's fine. In the same stadium where VAR didn't intervene? Take a look at 60 minutes and 20 minutes. Take a look at the 2 penalties. Coming here and winning 1-0 or 2-0 is a big advantage and a big difference for us. I don't give any credit from Newcastle. They won deservedly the Premier League game, but why did it intervene in those 2 moments? And today it was more than 6 minutes, and they were not able to discuss with the referee to do it. They will call me and explain it to me. Guuhei, Ruben Dias, transfer plans, your Manchester City questions answered. Our weekly Q&A with Chief Manchester City writer Simon Bajkowski takes a look at some of the questions you have been asking. There's no shortage of Manchester City topics to discuss, as Pep Guardiola's men look to compete in 4 competitions this season after the disappointment of last season. We've got every game and press conference covered for you, but we also know that there is so much going on around that. That's why we are holding regular Q&A sessions with our Chief City writer Simon Bajkowski. The day of the week it comes out on may change depending on what City's schedule looks like, but essentially, this is your chance to get an answer on anything you want. Simply pop your question here at any time of the week, and Simon will pick them all up, wrap everything up in one place. This week, there's still talk of Mark Guuhei and the January transfer window, but also a look further ahead and some non-transfer questions after a good week for the Blues that has seen them compensate for losing Ruben Dias and Josko Gvardiol to significant injuries. Thanks Ayush, and everyone who asked about Mark Guuhei that I'm wrapping into this question. City are still interested in signing Guuhei this month, but it is far from certain that a deal can be agreed with Palace and with the defender himself. Liverpool nearly completed a move last summer and are looking again for the end of the season, when it was expected Guuhei would move before City's injury issues saw them step up their interest. City being City, they are looking at other defenders too. I can't give any names unfortunately, but Hugo Viana was involved last year in an extensive scout for centre-backs, and while the profile they are looking at this month is different, City will still look to see if they can strike a deal. That being said, Max Aleni and Abdulkadir Kusanov have made an outstanding pair over the last week, and Nathan Ake has played in all 3 games, so the need to sign a centre-back does not feel as urgent as it did. January is hectic, but February will be much more serene with 2 blank midweeks if City can avoid a Champions League playoff, as well as a kind FA Cup draw. So Ruben Dias should be back, and John Stones could also be. Lots are also asking about the general centre-back situation in the longer term. There seems little downside in going for Guuhei if you're not expecting to keep John Stones or Nathan Ake. Guuhei will command significant money, but with Stones injured, he is England's best defender, has years of experience at the top level, is homegrown, and is coming into his peak years. If they can get him, they will. Carl asks if there is a chance of Ruben Dias leaving this summer, but there is more chance of him becoming City captain. Josko Gvardiol and Kusanov will stay as well, which brings City to 3. Vitor Rice was looking to play his way into the team with a strong year at Girona, and he could, although Elneny is suddenly providing competition and counts as homegrown, which helps. I think Juma Bar will be on loan next season, as will Jamai Simpson-Pusey, who had nicked in front of Elneny last year, and is now hoping he can get game time at Cologne. And then City probably needs someone of Guuhei's standing even if they can't get the man himself. That would likely see Elneny or Rice back on loan. Thanks, Jordan. It is really important to recognise the human aspect of injuries. It's been massively frustrating for Stones to see a second year wrecked by injury. He spoke in summer that last year had made him contemplate retirement, so it can't be nice, especially when he was nailed for the World Cup squad, as long as he stayed fit. Guardiola's frustrated as well, but in a different way, knowing how much better Stones can make the team, but not knowing when he will be able to come back. The fact he hasn't been training with the squad suggests a return is a few weeks away at least. Others have asked about a new contract for Stones as well, and Guardiola signalled that he will be judged on his last 2 years, where he has been sidelined too much for anyone's liking. It would take something to drastically change in the next 6 months for that stance to change. An interesting question, DZ, and a reminder that not all of these questions have to be about transfers. There are many months ahead when the winter window has shut, and there will hopefully still be lots to discuss. The point about Cherki was raised in summer when he was with the French national team and wowed on debut off the bench against Spain before looking far less effective when he started against Germany. At the beginning of his City career, he scored on debut off the bench against Wolves, and something similar happened in the next game when he started against